Hi. I fear that a lot of people are using the death spiral, not because it's the correct strategy for the situation, but just because it's what they've been told to do. There are a lot of YouTube videos that do an exceptional job at explaining how to effectively use the spiral, but almost all of them fail to teach you about when you should use it. The death spiral has its own list of pros and cons, just like with every other strategy out there. My goal with this video is to help you figure out when you should and shouldn't use the death spiral. It's important that you can fully understand how, why, and when to use every single strategy you put in your arsenal. That way you can fully recognize what it is you're trying to accomplish, so you can have an easier time deciding which plan to put into play. I hope I don't disappoint. The first thing we need to establish is the reason behind why the death spiral is even used in the first place. Now there are two main reasons for this. The first being that keeping your boat constantly moving will make it slightly harder for the enemy crew to board your ship. And secondly, spinning around the enemy boat will give you the opportunity to put holes all over their ship, allowing you to spread out your damage. That being said, the death spiral isn't always a good strategy for every situation. That's because it has one inherent flaw. The fact that you repeatedly go into an enemy's broadside and give them an opportunity to take back control of the fight. What you're essentially doing is going from a spot where the other ship is unable to shoot cannons, one ball, blunder bomb, chain shot, and curse ball you to a spot where they can now do that. A good crew will just wait below deck to avoid being killed, and once you're in range, pop up and start putting pressure on you to win the broad. Because of this weakness in the strategy, you need to make sure that you have a plan to protect this from happening. One way to prevent them from being able to capitalize on their broadside is to get a blunder bomb or curse ball loaded into your cannon so that you can stop them from getting into their cannons. Now here's a prime example of why using the spiral can be so catastrophic. The sloop did an amazing job at disabling our cannons by using curse balls as soon as we were about to shoot them. However, they continued spinning into our other broadside and they lost control of the fight right then and there. If they had decided to park behind our boat, we wouldn't have had an angle to cannon them and they could have attempted to hit bottom decks and one ball us. And if they had stayed behind us, then they only would have had to worry about getting sniped and boarded, but because they went into our broad, they not only had to worry about getting sniped and boarded, but also about getting chained, blunderbombed, and one-balled. This is why you need to use an alternate technique when fighting bigger ships. If you fully raise your sails and just park in front of or behind the enemy's boat, then you'll completely get rid of the flaw that the death spiral has and you can avoid being cannoned. What this does is allows you to free up a player to do other things. When you use the death spin, your helm has to constantly check and make sure that you still have angle. But if your boat is parked, then that means they are now free to shoot cannons or repair the ship without the worry of losing the angle. Secondly, since you're never going into their broad, you don't have to waste time shooting blunder bombs or curse balls at the cannon line, and you can instead focus solely on getting lower deck pressure and forcing them into panic mode. Since they don't have the angle to shoot you, their best option is to turtle and try to tank the damage to avoid getting one-balled. Now if you park directly in front of their ship, then you'll only be able to hit the same 4 holes. So you want to make sure that you park slightly in front of or behind the bow of their ship, allowing you to cannon them at both the front and the side. And another thing, if you're parked in front of them and they start spinning to try and get an angle to shoot you, just lower your sail and keep in front of them for as long as possible. Or if it's the opposite direction, lower your sail to quickly get behind them and out of their broad. In this clip, the brigantine we were fighting did an exceptional job at making sure they had first broad, but they failed to shoot any blunder bombs or curse balls to get us off cannons and instead opted to go for chain shots. Because of this, as soon as they got into our broad, we immediately one-balled all 3 of them and they lost the fight. This just goes to show you how important numbers are when fighting. If you're on a tinier ship, you should always avoid a broad versus broad battle where both ships are just shooting each other. Since you're always going to be outnumbered on the cannons, you either have to make sure that you position your ship very well or spam them with curse balls. Otherwise, you risk losing based solely on the fact that you have less people. Sometimes it's better to park in front of their boats where the only danger is getting sniped or boarded rather than circling them, and in addition to getting sniped and boarded, you also have to worry about getting one-balled, chain-shotted, blunder-bombed, and curse spammed. The obvious question now is, when should you use the death spiral, and when is it better to just park in front of their boat and avoid the cannon fire? The answer is based solely on how well you can prevent them from firing back at you. For example, if you're a sloop or brigantine going up against a good galleon crew, then you want to make sure that you spam them with blunder bombs or curse balls to get them off the cannons. If you don't do this, then you're just going to be overpowered by the cannon pressure and you'll have no chance at winning the battle. Personally, I think the death spiral should only be used if you're a solo player, and even then, it's almost always going to be better to just park where they can't shoot you. I think it's worth it to just play it safe and avoid getting cannoned, rather than giving them an opening to win the fight, just because you wanted to make it slightly harder for them to get on your ladder. All that being said, you can use whatever strategy you want against bad players. If you're fighting a crew and you realize that you're better than them, then it really doesn't matter what strategy you use, you're probably going to win anyway. But I'm not trying to teach you how to win against the 90%. I want to show you how you can beat the crews that are better than you, teach you how to win the fights you lost last time. Numbers are the name of the game, but you can only use your numbers to the greatest effect if you're able to shoot cannons. If you can stop them from utilizing their biggest asset, then you've just made the game vastly easier for yourself. I hope that was helpful, and I was able to teach you as to why the death spiral isn't a very good strategy. If you have any questions or objections, put them in the comments so I can answer your concerns. Anyways, good luck.